Lovely. I'm still always just here, just like this. And Sai has made the story even longer. So I'm just like, hello.
Dancing away.
Welcome to another session with us on Aucademy. I am Dr. Chloe Farahar, and I'm on the lower part of the screen. I am a white person with a very closely shaved head, giant glasses, and some Aucademy merch, but genuinely just because I like wearing it. Come to Autopia jumper with a hood, and there's like an infinity symbol, and it says "We have stimmies" underneath. And I am joined today by fellow co-host Dr. Annette Foster, and we will be talking to Jaesic. I'm just going to hand over to Annette, if you wouldn't mind doing a description.
Sure. Yes, I am a white person with long blonde hair and blue eyes. I've kind of an ovalishy kind of face, and I always go red when I'm definitely doing a live. I've got a black jumper on, and I'm in, well, an attic. Jaesic will know what I mean, but what do you call it in the UK? I can't remember.
It's a loft. It's a loft in the UK, yeah.
So there's like beams coming down, and it's kind of a triangle above me. And I'm Dr. Annette Foster.
And Jaesic, if you wouldn't mind doing a description.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I am a white person as well with short bleach blonde hair. I don't know what shape my face is. I've never thought about that before. But I'm wearing a light green shirt with the sweetest baby Grogu image on the front there. And yeah, I have a inclusive queer flag behind me with the trans, black, brown colors, and then the rest. So
fantastic. And this is my excited stimmy because of Grogu on the shirt.
Yes, I do spirit, or not ferret. Yes. I can't talk. Sparkle fingers. I do sparkle fingers a lot.
Sparkle fingers.
You'll see those.
It's just like, it's cute aggression. This is cute aggression.
I saw that Kate was here already. Kate has lost their voice, or else they would be here today. Kate Monday. Yeah, and I'm sure that they would want to say hi.
Yes.
and they're very good at doing a description. They're like super detailed. So I'm always trying to kind of like, okay, what can I do that's super detailed about my description?
I love that.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, today, hello everyone, is all about autistic and queer self-discovery and the intersections of religion, relationships, and grief with Jaesic on Aucademy, which is a great title. And I think that's like, you're all the things, Jaesic, aren't you? Which I totally identify with. I'm all the things. So just like a brief question for you, who are you and what are your dedicated interests or specialisms?
Oh my, you say brief and who are you? It's a very loaded question.
Yeah.
But I'll do my best. So hi everyone, my name is Jaesic. I use they, he pronouns. I am the owner of Queer Cult, which is a blog and community. And I am a life coach, blogger, musician, dancer, DJ. I do a lot of things. I'm a very busy person. Otherwise, I don't know what to do with myself. I don't know what relaxing is, actually. Like, that doesn't really make sense to me. I'm learning, though, because otherwise I burn out and then have a whole thing. So, but otherwise, yeah, I am very passionate for interest-wise. I'm very passionate about people, actually. So people, the way we connect, the way we communicate has always been my jam. I wanted to be a psychologist way back when. I ended up graduating with a women's studies degree, which is now a gender studies degree. But I'm putting it to use here in my blog and in my work and connecting with you all. And I'm super honored and excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming. Yeah, I guess so. We've got the next question we usually ask is kind of did you discover you were autistic? But you know, for me, there's lots of coming outs in my life as non-binary and also pansexual as well. So yeah, you can add in any things you want.
Yeah. No, I understand now when you say you resonate, right? Like I have also had many coming outs. However you say that. In my lifetime. I just turned 28. I came out when I was 25 for non-binary. I knew I was pansexual at that time as well. I just hadn't really like fully embraced it yet. So we'll just call that a joint coming out. And then I'm also polyamorous, which came, out to the world around that time, even though I was practicing before then. And now at 26, towards I think it was honestly 6-ish months into the pandemic, that I was like, I'm relating to all these figures that I am paying attention to. And a lot of my friend group that I really vibe well with are neurodivergent. And I was already diagnosed with ADHD at 23. And I had gone through DBT therapy because I was diagnosed with BPD, which because of DBT, I've discovered that it was a misdiagnosis. I was just autistic in crisis my whole life. So, yeah, it's been a whirlwind, the pandemic. We can go into this later, but I will say it's a very privileged thing to have time and space to evaluate who you are, where you are, how you are, because the pandemic shut us down. And I was forced physically to stop doing all of the things, and pay attention inwardly. So yeah, short answer is I was 26.
So not too long, actually.
No, not too long at all.
Yeah. Yeah. So how does that because obviously you do a lot of stuff. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about the stuff you do and how that might relate.
Yeah, absolutely. Where to even start? So when I say it's a privilege, right? I wasn't working at the time in a full job capacity or full-time job capacity. And when the pandemic hit, then everything shut down and we're just obviously forced to stay inside and not do all the things. And at that, leading up to the pandemic, I'm sorry, I'm going to trace back a little bit. 2019, I had the biggest break in my entire life. I was coming out of an abusive relationship. I had chosen family relationships that were ruined because of that relationship. I was coming down with pneumonia. I was coming down with the biggest burnout of my entire life, autistic speaking in that way. And my friend had just died. And so did my friend's child. So all in the same weekend on the anniversary of another person who took their life. So all of these things were happening and I just lost it. I was at rock bottom. It took me 2 whole years, literally 2019 to 2021. My mom has been very generous, again, a privileged thing, to support me so that I could heal. Because I was so depressed and so physically broken with my disability. And then also not understanding why life is just so freaking hard. Because I'm a do-gooder. I try really hard to do the best I can. And my whole life, I've basically gotten the feedback of, you're not enough, because I was holding myself to neurotypical standards, and able-bodied standards. And, the way our cishet patriarchy of a capitalist system just, paves the way for this one type of mold, this one type of person. And I was not that mold. I did not fit. So yeah, the pandemic really allowed me the time and space to think about how I create my own burnout, but also how circumstances add to it. And I'm a completely different person now. In a good way, in a much better way, much more healthy. But yeah, sorry, I don't know if I answered your question. What was the question?
I can't even remember. I just said I was just saying you.
Oh, lots of things coming out, right?
Yeah. The coming out question was the start of it. Yeah, but I think that's really important to talk about burnout in particular, because a lot of autistic people experience it. For me, I was diagnosed, I was 39 years old. So I had a life cycle of burnout, depression, anxiety, and it was just a circle that kept going over and over again. And I was misdiagnosed with mental illness most of my life. So I think, that is a huge thing, that a lot of autistic people are misdiagnosed with other things because
especially
of that.
AFAB people, because we don't fit any of the crisis molds that they talk about in the DSM, because that was based on little white boys who were in crisis. Like,
Exactly.
Oh
And
God.
it's
So
obviously
I'm
really
so
important
sorry.
to-
Oh,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
I have to be rude. I completely forgot to get my charger, and my battery is like dying. So
Yep,
I have
sure,
to go
you can
run and
grab
get
that.
I'll get it.
Quick.
So sorry. I'll be right back.
That's all right. I was just all I was, I was going to contribute, if you like, in the sense of, there's so much issue with if we do not fit that very, very, very narrow stereotype, as Annette and I train about. Yes, if you are anything other than assigned male at birth, white, and from particular backgrounds, then yes, it's very unlikely that you will be recognised as an autistic person. And Jaesic, I appreciate, because you have mentioned a number of times that you have been in a privileged position in the sense of, I'm assuming, obviously correct me if I'm wrong, because you are a white person, for instance.
Yes.
So then there's that other layer of complexity that where we've supported, Black autistic people or autistics of colour, where they as well are missed as autistic people, but due to racism, and if their behaviour is an autistic behaviour, as opposed to being seen as just weird or different in quotation marks, they're seen as having challenging or problem behaviour in schools and missed as well. So I appreciate this discussion on so much intersectionality, because I think, can I ask, because I was really interested by the title that you and I think Sai, our Northern Naughty, came up with, and I was like, that's a lot of things, but I understood that there's a reason for all the things. So I think that will probably take the whole session, and maybe that will be the case of what this session is about, but explaining how, or starting to explain how, all these things relate. So autistic and queer self-discovery, and the intersections of religion, relationships, and grief, because they're not all separate topics. You wanted to discuss these all in relation to one another, as far as I understood from Sai. So how, if you can start with, how do all these things relate to each other?
Yeah, absolutely. So in my self-discovery journey, I truly believe that coming out as queer was the first, how do I put this? Okay, so I have this analogy or metaphor, whatever you want to call it, of a box, right? We all use the box sometimes when we're talking about, think outside of the box, or like girl and boy, those are boxes on the binary, right? So I grew up in a box, and I had to nail a bunch of masks to that box to survive. And I lost sight of who I was. And a lot of that was because of religion, and because of my ties to my family, and other individuals in my life, friends or partners later on in like college, or even before college, honestly. But so all of those masks, and it wasn't just neurotypical masking. It was, like for gender, it was for my mental health, it was for my ability status. So all of these masks, completely lost myself, and allowed a lot of opportunity for abusive, toxic situations. And it started with my parents. And if my mom sees this, every time I talk about my history, she feels like she's demonized, and I don't want to demonize her. I want to say that my parents did the best that they could with the resources and tools and all the things that they had. They're religious people and are neurodivergent themselves, without understanding what that means, without really looking at it, and not going to therapy. They don't want to do therapy either. So it's just not a lot of self-awareness in that way, which causes rifts in other parts of your life. And two adults who are neurodivergent and not compatible, both in their neurodivergence and in other ways, puts a lot of stress on the kids that you have. And especially when you're hyper religious, so like super conservative Christian people, for me, I had to be the perfect daughter. I had to be, and this isn't their intention, right? Intent versus impact is something that I like to focus on. Intentions were good. Impact didn't hit the mark. It missed it, and it hurt, both my brother and I. So, putting in this box with all these masks, and then, I have certain relationship attachment styles and coping mechanisms and behavior that wasn't me, wasn't authentic to me, but because I was told that I had to be this way, I swallowed it. And I was, autistic thinking, at least for me, is very literal face value. So if I'm told there are only two options, those are my options, and I have to fit the mold. And it wasn't until after college even that I really started to explore queer spaces. Like I kind of saw them here and there throughout college, but because of a specific relationship during my senior year of college, oh God, it was so bad. It was so bad. I had to, repeat a lot of cycles of abuse, unfortunately, until I finally woke up one day and I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like, this is not me. This is not who I want to be. I know I deserve better. I know the people in my life deserve better. I don't need this treatment from other people. And even with my parents, like I had to distance myself for some time to really find who I was, find a hammer and unnail all of those masks off that box and break the box completely, because none of it was me. So when I say like religion and the intersections of religion and relationships, because I didn't know I was neurodivergent, because I wasn't allowed to see my true queerness, I was stuck in a life that wasn't mine. I was pretending constantly. I was acting constantly. And to be honest, I wanted to die a lot. I have a semicolon tattoo on me. I'm sorry. I should have, more than abusive relationships. I'm sorry. I should have mentioned that before content warning. But, we are now fast forwarding to grief, right? So I was 26 or 25 when I came out nonbinary and pansexual and polyamorous, kind of all in the same span of time, to my parents specifically, but to the world also. And then 26, because of the pandemic, like I mentioned, I came across this big life-altering realization of, oh my God, this is why I'm different. I'm not broken. I'm just different. The world wasn't built for people like me. And because I finally started to surround myself with people who are like me, I started to notice that the dichotomy of this is real because this is the world, but also this is real because we exist. like there's intersections in that way. And it took me a long time. And even now, still, sometimes I get caught up in imposter syndrome, which is, I identify that as a type of grief because it is heavy. It's hard to deal with constantly doubting yourself. Like I've been doing that my whole life because of miscommunication, misinterpretation, misjudgment, because I'm different. But when it's for your own self-discovery, it's really hard to get rid of that practice narrative and actually believe what you see to be true for yourself. It feels wrong at first. It feels wrong to be healthy at first when you're used to not having the healthy, right? So when I talk about grief, I grieved over, well, it was anger. So those stages, right? I forget them in the order that they go. It's like denial, anger, depression, acceptance. I'm missing one. But bargaining, right? Maybe that's the one.
Yeah, and don't worry too much. Annette and I actually have a session where we're going to cover the because there's 5 stages usually in relation to this understanding of grief. But yeah, we cover 6 stages of autistic discovery, which includes those 5, plus embracing your autistic self. So don't worry. But you're right. Those are the potential stages or reactions or phases that people might experience.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay, cool. So like, yeah, I would vacillate or oscillate, I don't know, whatever word works there, between anger and sadness and denial, and then back to anger and depression. And like, it was this really messy, I don't even know. Like I felt like I was in a bag getting shaked around, that kind of thing. And when I say grief, it's like grief over missing out on a world that might have accepted me sooner, missing out on my identity as I am now. Like if I had known all of the things back when it was appropriate during actual puberty to like discover these things and embrace these things and be who I actually was and am, that grief is heavy because it feels like a big chunk of time was wasted. And I don't want to say that it was wasted, but it feels like it was wasted because I had to go through all this trauma and bullshit to finally arrive at where I am and go through a second puberty, which is another type of grief, like relearning how to be who you are in a world for relationships and for effective communication and where you work and where you go to school and just all these things kind of pile on. And then you add in my other identities with chronic pain, right? Because of I have hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and I've been gaslit my entire life thinking that, you know, they're being told that, oh, it's just in your head. Like, you're not actually in pain. Go to a psychologist, like have some depression meds, which by the way, I don't know if this is a thing for autistic people. I think it is though, because like the more I talk about it, I've been seeing a similar discussion, but like meds don't work for me the same way that they do for other people. Like pain meds and depression, anxiety meds, like they just don't work. In fact, some of them put me in the hospital. So it's like a weird it's a weird situation.
We have actually discussed this, not in great detail. I think it just because it came up, but the fact
last week actually.
Yeah.
How sensitive and how sensitive a lot of autistic people are. So like I was saying, I was trying to come off one because I at one point I was on 3 antidepressants. But I was trying to come off one, and even 5 milligrams, going from 5 milligrams to 0 was like impossible to just quit completely. And the doctors would say, well, that's not the case. They just gaslight you and say that's not the case at all. You should be fine. You keep it, and other people are just saying, how sensitive autistic people are to different medications. But I would say, I can't take pain medication because it makes me ill.
Same.
Yeah. So, I'd rather have the pain.
Right.
Used to pain. Autistic people are used to pain.
Honestly, though,
medication is not tested with a large number of autistic people. It is tested on, I won't say neurotypical people, because if they're, people with depression, etc., they're not neurotypical. They are neurodivergent, right. But they're not tested with neurologies like autistic neurology or ADHD neurology and so on. So yeah, makes sense that, like you're saying, this didn't work, or it actually makes people ill, and
the whole idea of it being a happy pill as an autistic person, that doesn't really work either. I don't even know if that's just a myth anyways.
honestly though, and that's another form of grief in my world, is like, how does capitalism and colonialism affect how we get healthy, how we stay healthy, how we be healthy outside of those paradigms. Like I just had a conversation with the neurodivergent rebel on Tuesday. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them, but Lyric, we talked about shifting from a pathology paradigm. So this is work of Nick Walker. I don't know if you know her, but actually Kate did a review, which is why I bought the book. So good stuff. But like shifting from that pathology paradigm into a neurodiversity paradigm, where neurotypical doesn't equal normal, and we're all valued the same so that we all get the accommodations that we need. And like in a pathology paradigm, anyway, I don't know why I went there. My brain just went blank, but anyway, speaking of
we
medical
love
grief,
Nick Walker.
right? So like we're adding, sorry?
Oh, I just said we love Nick Walker. They've been on a few times. They're amazing.
Oh, good. Yeah. I'm thoroughly enjoying her book. Like I am very much geeking out about it. But that being said, so like, I guess when I say autistic grief, like we were talking about before we went live, I'm not talking about bereavement over being autistic. In fact, knowing that I am autistic has been one of the most liberating things for me, as far as like self-efficacy and compassion and understanding, and then being able to go into the world with that knowledge. And like, I was already kind of code switching before between like neurotypical language and neurodivergent, like where you have to extend yourself to communicate the way that they do, so you're able to interact with the world, right? But I'm not grieving for the fact that I am autistic. Like, that is not what I mean by grief at all. It's just, you know, all these intersecting layers.
Yeah.
And the reason we brought that up before we came on is because I was saying that I had to take a post down on Twitter because literally like 4 people, and that means that upsets me. It's 4 people. It's not like I was like mobbed or anything, but you know, I'm a sensitive person, like some of us can be. And the 6 common, we're now calling it the 6 common reactions of autistic discovery, was misinterpreted as being really ableist and like a neurotypical thing, as if we go through grieving that we're autistic and all this kind of stuff. And one, I'd never actually used the word grief at all. We talked about how we see lots of us experiencing, like I say, denial. I'm not autistic. I'm not like those other autistic people. I don't do that autistic thing. And so we're going to cover this properly in a session, me and Annette, in a couple of weeks or next week. I think it's next week. But also really importantly, I think is not, and I don't think it's you saying this. This is where I was getting frustrated on Twitter. So I just want to like clarify that I also think we shouldn't be shaming people who do feel grief. The fact that they're autistic, because that is still their reaction, that is still their response and their feeling. We would hope, though, that they then get to come and be part of the autistic community and move on to a different reaction. But I think, yeah, so I think it's really interesting because I never thought of it as grief in the sense of, oh no, I'm autistic per se. Right. I always thought of it as, like you said, looking back and going, those people treated really, really badly. And it wasn't because I'm weird or broken or whatever it is. It's because I'm autistic. And so actually they were bullies. They were abusive. They were this. And so you're looking back going, and yeah, I think it's interesting using the word grief maybe then. Yeah.
I totally identify with that. I mean, I almost started crying because I'm 50, so I'm much older than you are. So my experience of coming out, I came out as bisexual when I was in my 20s, so 30 years ago. That I wasn't really accepted by the community at the time because I was, you know, bi people were just kind of seen as, you know, being greedy. I didn't really fit anywhere. Obviously, I was autistic as well, and not discovered that till I was 39, and I had no idea. I didn't know anything about the community, so I did grieve because you know, that was 13 years ago now. That I was autistic because I'd never even heard of it. I didn't know anything about it other than massive stereotypes. Like at the time, Rain Man was the only image that I could see. You know, so very different experience. And then, you know, that coming, the masks and the shields that we create to protect ourselves, basically. But that does change our identity. And for me, my self-esteem was nowhere because I was constantly trying to please people. And I grieved for the Annette that maybe had a self-esteem, you know, and it wasn't constantly trying to please people and trying to do things to make everyone else comfortable while I was suffering and I was uncomfortable. And that just, when you said that, it made me upset. I like wear my emotions on my sleeve, so I cry all the time.
That's okay. I'm so honored that you are resonating so deeply and are sharing in this way, because that's exactly what I want to be here for. This kind of connecting, you know. And it's so beautiful to know that we're not alone, you know. And that's something that I wanted to bring up, is like you're talking about, like, you didn't have the resources except for Rain Man at the time, right? Like, that's another form of privilege that I feel like a lot of us are finally getting to experience now is because of the internet, because we have these online communities, because we have people fiercely advocating for our rights as neurodivergent people. It's just amazing to see how technology has allowed the growth of the community and the connection and finding ourselves in other people. I wouldn't know that I was autistic if I didn't have online connection. If I hadn't seen the Neurodivergent Rebel and connected with other people through their page, and like if I didn't know, like the community. So thank you for being here and having me here and being a community.
We're really selfish on Aucademy, because it's literally just like, how many amazing autistic people can we meet and discuss all these different topics and see the diversity of the community as well is really, really important.
And we have so much to thank, the autistic community, people like Jim Sinclair, who started, not Autscape, because that's the one in the UK. I can't remember what the name of it. Autreat. But yeah, and just, that very first online community, and when they met, back in the 90s, people like Nick Walker, all the amazing pioneers of the autistic community that, basically stood up and said, we're not going to take this anymore. We're human beings just like everyone else. We're just different.
Absolutely.
And amazing that they did that for us. And that
back in the 90s, when it was dial-up, and it was like really not dodgy in the sense that they were bad, but in the sense of like just really basic forums and things that you would get online. So we have so much respect for those people who actually, even just by connecting as autistic people, were busting the stereotypes that we don't have friends or make friendship, or that we want to be isolated, or that we, this kind of thing. So that we've really gone off on a random, amazing tangent. I love the way this communication go. So, and we've got lovely Maggie here, turning 57 and grieving for many reasons, with relief and joy to identify as autistic. And I think actually we should be allowed and not feel shamed by anyone, neurotypical or even our own community, that some of us do feel grief, whether that's grief, as we've described, where it's grieving for the person how we wish we would have known earlier, for instance. But actually for those of people who also grieve because, like Annette said, for potentially, oh no, I am autistic. It's like we need to hold space for all of those people. And then just by modeling it without, forcing our narratives on people, which is one of the key ethos for Aucademy, which is we're gentle educators. We don't force narratives. If you want a new narrative, come over. But, we're not going to force a narrative on people. Totally lost my train of thought there as well, because I'm liking this. Being honest that grieving is okay for your identity because it's yours. It's different if it's a non-autistic person who's grieving you for who you are. That is very, very different. That is ableist. And we do come to our discovery sometimes internalizing that ableism, but we shouldn't be shamed for that. We are allowed to process that and move through those feelings. And I think that's, different.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you for saying. I was like, oh, I want to jump in because you already said it. Internalized ableism, right? Like we are force fed this narrative that we have to, like I said before, look, act, be a certain way, and that takes a toll on our brains with conditioning, right? So we're conditioned to believe that we're broken if we're not those things. So when we talk about grief in that way, like I love that you say, I'll use my own words, but we need to provide grace for ourselves and for others when we go through these stages or phases or expressions of what we're experiencing in our self-discovery. And I loved that you also brought up when neurotypicals are the ones grieving you, that alone, that speaks to my whole experience and the title of today's talk, because that's another thing that I'm going through in all of my identities, especially with my mom. Like she does not accept non-binariness. She loves me. and she wants me to be successful, but she can't accept my identity, which is kind of counterproductive in my opinion. But recently we've gone through a huge blow up fight. I mean, we've been through a lot of fights in the last year and a half because pandemic dislocated us. My partner and I are living with my mom right now, so it's been really challenging. So like with non-binariness, with my sexuality, with my polyamorous lifestyle, and neurodivergent stuff, like thankfully she hasn't like grieved that specific part, but like with all of the things mixed together, it's all of it's me. Mm-hmm. So if you're gonna grieve a part of me, you're not really seeing all of me. And how am I supposed to have a fulfilling, mutually like symbiotic, loving relationship if you're not going to see me for who I actually am? And that's another layer of grief that I am just swimming in these days. I'm sure there are others out there who can relate, but it's just, and that's why I actually I started a queer grief space online. I have a meeting once a month.
I've got that flagged as, yeah, can we talk about the queer grief jam? Because that's like, just as a sentence, it's an amazing like name. Queer grief jam is amazing.
Oh, thank you.
The thing is, in the UK, jam is like your jelly that you would put in like sandwiches. So I'm assuming you mean like jam as in like we're jamming out to like music or
music
right?
jam.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Otherwise, I'm imagining like strawberry jam, right? So
no. That's so good. Yeah, so actually I'll just pull up what I say on my thing. So what is a jam, right? I went to this jam last summer. It was a healing and justice wellness jam, and it was for leaders and change makers to come together and put down their resiliency and talk about strategy and their visions for the world and make connections and network and embolden each other to continue that work. And it was just a really beautiful, authentic, genuine, like grounded space. And we got to just talk and inspire each other. So when I say queer grief jam, queer grief specifically is the grief we hold in a world for living as we are, where this world doesn't always accept, respect, or celebrate us. And when we come together in this jam, it's there's no jiffing. So there's like a peanut butter pun because I had to. There's no judging, interpreting, or fixing. So I'll read. This space is a safer environment to bring your perspective and set down your resiliency. In this space, we will be seen, heard, and loved and supported without having to offer anything other than our presence. And in this brave space, we can name the pain that we've been carrying and find solace in another. So we can like continue on feeling empowered that there are other people who know what the suffering is like, and we don't have to defend it. We don't have to say it's okay because it's not okay. But that, but it's good to just come together and like feel that and let it be felt and let other people feel it with you and honor each other with our grief. And so like this space is just a place to talk about resiliency as living as a queer person and talk about how it's exhausting and it's not a badge of honor. That's what capitalist society wants us to say. Like, your resiliency is a badge of honor because you've been working. That's not real. That's not real life. Like, that's just,
the word
that's a
resilience
lie.
is definitely a word for the bin and just a concept for the bin. We shouldn't have to build or be resilient.
Thank you.
Definitely not.
Exactly.
I hate that word.
God, it's such a 180 once you make that switch between badge of honor and exhaustion. Like, looking back with the new lens of like, wow, I shouldn't have to be this way just to freaking exist. It's like it changes the whole world perspective, at least it has for me. So yeah, so with queer grief, we come together and do this. And now I am seeing a really real need to have this space for queer, neurodivergent, and disabled folk. I am all those things. And I have a lot more grief to talk about because of those intersecting identities. And the people that I'm talking to are like, yeah, oh my God, like I'm so tired of this. Like, and you don't want to be a quote unquote burden on the people who don't hold these identities, because you already might rely on them for certain aspects of your life, for mobility or emotional stability or what have you. So having a space to come talk to basically strangers, but you get to know each other at, you know, each time, where we can just like start at level 5 instead of level 1, and like not go through the whole, well, I'm this way because of this, and you can't tell me that I'm not this, because like that's the stuff for the default world. In this space, we just get to come and be, talk about our experience, you know, find solace, like I said, in sharing those experiences, and knowing that we're not alone in holding that grief over having all of these intersecting identities. So yeah, it's a new project. It's very experimental. I'm still learning how to organize it and how to facilitate, but it's growing, and I'm very excited to see what happens now with the neurodivergent and the disability added segments. Yeah.
I think that really resonates with me. I'm like getting emotional just thinking about it. Just for me, I just came out as non-binary in the last couple of years. So
congratulations.
The masking, yeah, but the masking and the shielding I've done my entire life made me not even. I mean, I now looking back, going, yeah, I was totally non-binary. I just, you know, there wasn't even a word for it 30 years ago.
Right.
But yeah, there's a lot of grief there for the person that I hid from the world and my own self in a lot of. I didn't mean to. You know, it was internalized ableism once again. It's not my fault.
No,
but
it's not.
But yeah, there is a lot of grief, and it's not recognized. And I think that sounds amazing. I think, you know, there's a lot of autistic people my age that are just discovering their gender now, after discovering and just discovering they're autistic as well. So all these kind of coming outs, you know, at different stages of your lives as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's you know, life's a process, a journey. It's not linear in the ways that we find ourselves and heal. And I really, there's something that you said a while ago, and just what you said reminded me of like, it's really like that really special grief of understanding that you are this person with this new lens, right, of autism or queerness, and then looking back and seeing all those masks that you're finally pulling off. It's like half the time I've been masking so well that that became my personality. And how do you know how to detangle all the little intricate connections of what is masking and what is actually you? You know, like,
and maybe we don't have to, you know, I mean, once again, we like to say shields. It's something that Katie came up with in an article that they wrote, Katie Monday, because mask implies that it's something we can kind of take off, or something that we can control or hide behind. And actually, it's more that we were shielding ourselves from abuse, from you know, being pointed out, from being bullied, from all sorts of things. And you know, it's like we have to take control of that, so that we use it to our advantage when we need to, but also understand who we are underneath those shields as well.
Yeah.
And
no, I like that.
I mean, I really do enjoy Twitter sometimes because it helps me keep up to date with things like very, very quickly. You know, I like to purposely follow people with identities that I don't share, so that I can actually get a better understanding and not be an island, and things like this. But I also get very frustrated, like many people do, with Twitter, because it can turn quite quickly. And I got cross because an autistic male, I don't think I'm misgendering them, pretty sure they identify as male on their page, on their profile, so American autistic advocate, and they kind of, I guess, made their advocacy about trying to demonstrate the skills that you can sell as an autistic person, so like within the business world and things like this. And so somebody was asking on Twitter about how do you help somebody stop masking, And my response was, when I work because I'm not that kind of doctor, I work in a non-therapeutic capacity as an autistic consultant with autistic people. We never work to demask that person. Even if they come to me and say, I want to stop masking, I will explain to them, obviously quite gently, why I won't and can't do that. And it's because you would then be left completely vulnerable because you haven't got your shield, and actually still not knowing who you are. So what Annette and I actually do, the work that we would do with autistic people, is to build knowledge of their profile. So who are you? How do you experience the sensory world? How do you experience and understand things like you say, like your gender, your sexuality, and so on? Build knowledge of who you are from the basics of, I say basics, but the basics of sensory, and I'm pointing at Annette because that's like key. But once you've built that knowledge, you've got a better understanding who you are. You can then communicate that in your way, whether that's with mouth words or alternate means of communication. And then you are in control of that shield and that mask. Otherwise, you've just demasked somebody, and they're completely vulnerable, and then don't know who they are. And actually, then they're very vulnerable to abuse, or are vulnerable when they go into any neurotypical setting, because actually they're not allowing themselves to learn what protects them and so on. So this idea of demasking is very problematic, and that's not what you were saying at all. We talked about you working yourself out. This was me getting angry with the person on Twitter in my head, because this other person on Twitter was like, well, actually, when I'd said this and I explained quite clearly in a number of Twitter threads, what I meant, and they were like, well, actually, I would help them demask and let them compare how I did it. And I was like, well, you're one person.
You're a completely different person.
You're not, for instance, I don't know, a black trans autistic person. There's no way you can compare your mask, your shielding, to that person. And I would never presume that. That would be really arrogant of me. I would help that person learn who they are and keep control of their mask, because we've been taught by Melissa Simmons, who's a black autistic academic, that they are not safe in multiple spaces because of not just being autistic, but also because of racism. So there's an extra element that there's no way I can understand and expect them to demask. That would be really unethical.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking about learning about yourself so that you can self-advocate, because a lot of times when you discover you're autistic, you kind of go, well, I don't know what support I need. I don't even know, and you're not told anything. I mean, if you do go for a diagnosis, it just gives you more questions than it does give you answers. I mean, one of the things that we've been doing with people that has been blown my mind is, the idea of, do you think in pictures or not? And it actually took me a couple of years to realize that I don't think in pictures. And therefore, in a lot of ways, I have alexithymia, so I don't always know how I feel. And I'm like, oh, that's why it's so hard for me to make decisions. Geez, I don't know how I feel half the time. It completely changes the way that you think about your experience, and actually gives you a lot more grace, like you said, to be kind to yourself and be like, well, actually, there's reasons for these things.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a little guess here as well, that I think Jaesic thinks in pictures because of your analogy from the start when you were talking about a box and nailing masks and things to it. So is that a fair? Have I guessed correctly?
It's
that you do think in pictures?
Yeah, it's curious. How do I describe my thinking? I can think I can think in pictures when I'm trying to. They're not concrete though. I don't have like if I'm painting something, I have to have an image next to it that I am directly able to see. Like I can't have that in my mind's eye. I actually think
there's a lot of similarities between you and Annette. Like, where have you without disclosing too much information? Where did you grow up?
No, they're from Well, you live in New York, don't you? But you're from somewhere.
Rochester, New York. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm from Seattle. I'm way over.
Oh,
on the other
okay.
side.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, did you grow up down the road
No.
from each other?
Yeah, but because I was an artist, I'm like, I'm a visual person, therefore I think in pictures. But then when I really, really, really looked at it, actually, I don't most of the time. I feel in my head. I don't.
Oh my God.
Weird.
No, I was just about to say I think in feelings.
Yeah. So that's why I cry so much and I'm so emotional, because it's just there. As soon as I think it, I feel it.
Yep.
Yep. Wow.
Heart on the sleeve.
Yeah.
All
exactly.
the time.
But do you know what's really nice about this? Do you know what's really nice about this though? Is that even as autistic people, we are all so different from one another. Annette and I have met hundreds of autistic people, supported hundreds of autistic people since like 2018. There is probably only one or two autistic people where I can go, this person is so similar to me. Right, so we can see bits of ourselves in other autistic people, but it's actually quite rare for us to be able to go, oh look, there's somebody who's actually very similar to me. And the one time that I've really experienced that was with Kate Fox, and I think I kind of got goosebumps because Kate Fox is how do they describe themselves? They're a stand-up poet, is that right? Like a stand-up
Comedian poet. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I can't remember how they describe what they do, like their creative sort of background, but yeah, they were doing like a stand-up poetry, and it was like this long poem in relation to them as an autistic person, and I was like, all of the things, and it gave me goosebumps. That's actually quite rare because we're so varied as people, so I'm just feeling like oh, it's nice, like you two are so similar, and that must be really, it feels validating. That's what we always want, is to feel validated that we're not alone in this big old world, and that's very difficult for autistic people, because without connecting to other autistic people, we really are very alone in this big old world.
We don't have the opportunity to talk about these things, or even know to talk about them, like, you know, to know to talk about how I feel in my brain. Like, I've never actually met anyone else that has that, you know, other than my dad, who explained it to me, because I was asking him how he did it. But yeah, it's fascinating. I love it. Yay!
As I say, we are very selfish on Aucademy. We just want to meet more autistic people, and I say this to particularly the young autistic people that we might consult with. Like, so Annette, I know you've probably consulted quite recently as well with a small number of like young autistic people, like on a one-to-one, because we also work with small groups. Train of thought, Chloe. Train of thought. They always worry, particularly the young autistic people, when we go over time, because they're worried they're so self-conscious that they are taking up someone's time, that they are not worth someone's time, and things like this. They don't frame it that way, but it's what it feels like. And I always have to explain, we have gone over time, and that's my boundary, not yours. So you haven't crossed my boundary, because if I needed to end the session, I would. So just to reassure them that they haven't done anything wrong. But also I'm very honest with them, and I say, you're autistic and far too interesting for me to just end the conversation. You know, if you were not communicating on my wavelength the way we have been, I would have ended this, you know, and I joke with them as well a bit and be like, well, if you were non-autistic, I would have ended it like dead on the dot, kind of the hour. But yeah, it's a selfishness. I find autistic, you know, our autistic community is just so amazingly interesting and fascinating and beautiful and creative, as well as full of trauma and, you know, a number of other things. But it's been a tough week, so I'm sticking with positive again this week.
Yeah,
I like it.
It's been a tough week.
Yes, and you have to tell us when you're going to have your neurodivergent queer grief or neurodivergent disability thing. Yeah.
I will. I'll reach out. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm very excited. It's, you know, like I said, experimental and slow growing, but I think just knowing the need in my own life, and then talking to a few people and having it resonate, it's like, clearly this space is needed, and I'm ready. Like, I'm gonna do it, because why not? You know, like, if not me, then who? I mean, I'm not saying other people can't or shouldn't or won't, but like, in my sect of the world, like I'm seeing this. So I'm just excited to dive in and build more community and feel more community and be in that community. Because like we're all saying, like we're amazing people, so diverse and unique and beautiful, and what's not to benefit from that, from coming together and sharing our grief and moving through it together. Because like, yeah, there's just so much to unload sometimes. So thank you.
And it is not, I mean, this is the reason Annette and we improved our well-being, and you know, it is an ongoing journey. So this is the thing as well, where the person got frustrated with me on Twitter. I'm still annoyed at Twitter. Is that they ignored that in the blog I was explaining we are constantly on our autistic discovery journey until we die. It doesn't end. It's always changing, and you know, we might be moving through those different reactions and going back to some earlier ones, and you know, all this kind of thing. I have no idea where I was going with this.
Journey.
Journey.
Talking about
community.
the grief jam, community, meeting,
well-being. The well-being, yes,
well-being.
the well-being comes from. So this is like a phrase that people used to probably get sick of hearing me say, but you know, our well-being comes from fostering a positive autistic identity via culture, community, and autistic spaces. And Annette and I, you know, when I met Annette knew that they were autistic. I didn't. And actually, something that you said earlier on as well, that, for instance, the reason I worked out or started to work out that I was autistic, I saw a TED talk by a female-bodied autistic person. And I was like, what? I'm not just weird. I'm not just broken. I'm not just, you know, and, you know, without TED Talks, where would you be? And without, you know, all of this. But Annette mentioned it, and we talk about it quite a lot in our training, which is that, you know, diagnosis, particularly, you know, it's a privilege for a lot of people, but actually there's a lot of issue with the need for diagnosis in the first place. That's a whole other talk. But it gives you so many more questions than it does answers. And the majority of my answers for why do I experience this? Why does my hair annoy me? Why does my uvula annoy me? You know, why? I still don't know why I did the frog book. I've asked so many people. I've asked educational. I've done training this week. I've gone off on a really random tangent. I did training this week or last week with a number of people. I've done it with there was some educational psychologists, there were some therapists and psychiatrists and so on. And none of them could answer the question of why did I do the frog book in my assessment? What was that telling me about my autistic brain? And none of them can blooming answer. And that just makes me cross. And so my answers came from meeting Annette, and Annette telling me what Annette had already learned. It came from then finding people like Lyric of Neurodivergent Rebel, of Kieran Rose, of the Autistic Advocate, of just Nick Walker. I mean, actually, I already knew Nick Walker's work before knowing
because
I was
of
autistic.
neurodiversity. Yeah, of course.
And I still hadn't twigged. So I was, where's mine? Oh, no, I want to
I got yours too.
I think mine's in the living room because I'm
no. It's okay. You're matching in spirit.
Yeah.
You know, so our answers and our well-being, but also sometimes, you know, we can get also harmed in our community because there is a lot of trauma. And I think that's also a big discussion that needs to be had at some point. Like, how do we together not necessarily traumatize each other? Because that's actually something quite sad that happens in the community, because we're all pained. We've all experienced a lot of pain. But answers and well-being came from Annette.
Autistic
it came from community. I was only just saying they've missed that book. How can you miss it? I'm actually joking, Maggie, because we have promoted Nick's book a number of times because it's a very, very good, very important, very accessible book. So Katie has very kindly tagged it for you, which is Neuroqueer Heresies by Nick Walker. We've pushed it quite a lot because it's very important.
It's phenomenal. Like, absolutely. Yeah. Every page, I'm just like, yup, and yes.
Yeah, before the book came out, people were still asking us, "Oh, is there a good book to read?" And we were kind of like, Well,
Well,
Neurotribe, but it's really old. I don't know about that, but
yeah.
actually, yeah, now we just recommend this for people to read.
And it's accessible,
perfect,
and it's not
yeah.
that big. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Yep.
And it is just nice to have it all in one place, because originally it was, just using Nick's blogs. I was trying to use Nick's blog in 2013, and now we've got it in a book. It's great.
Yeah, it's amazing the timeline, right? Of how, I mean, it doesn't maybe feel quick, but when you look back, that's a decade, right? A decade of time where suddenly we have new vocabulary and new understanding of the differences that we experience as humans, and how beautiful diversity is. Like, why I guess I'm just grateful finally neurodivergence is considered part of the full spectrum of neurodiversity. Like, we have the words for it now, and we're exploring, like, I'm sensing and I'm feeling a shift happen from that pathology paradigm that they talk about to a neurodiversity one, where all of us are valued and worthy because we're just human. We're all just different expressions of the human experience, you know? And that should be treated like any form of diversity, like race, ethnicity, religion, gender, sexuality. Neurodivergence is right in there. Like, we should all be, that should be included in our diversity, equity, and inclusion work. You know, like, that should be a big part of moving forward. And I am seeing it happen slowly. So that's encouraging, at least. Yeah.
And I think, hopefully, if it doesn't get edited out, because that'd be really sad, but I've got a chapter coming up in Critical Handbook of Autism Studies this year. But yeah, I talk exactly like that well, we've talked about it here before as well, which is that we're a depathologized platform anyway, so we don't talk about diagnosis and the importance of diagnosis. That it may be important for some people, so it's not to invalidate that. That's not what I mean.
Sure.
But we talk about, when did you discover you were autistic? And that might be via diagnosis. That might be, though, without diagnosis,
so
because
self-identify,
because this is the thing. I
think it's better that way. If you discover being autistic if you discovered being autistic through the community, you're going to have a much better experience of just being autistic from the beginning than to experience it through pathology and the diagnosis process.
Right, because it sets you up for thinking, okay, this is a condition. This is not who I am. This is something that's a part of me. Like, there's that distinction, just like with identity first language or functioning labels. Like, we're told we're separate from our autism, when literally everything I experience is because I'm autistic. Like, the way that I experience it, it's a whole system experience. It's not just pathways in the brain, So I really appreciate that shift within the community, especially of, like, accepting self-identified people and expressing the support of, like, it's a privilege to get a diagnosis. It's not always necessary to understand who you are. Like, it's not like a medical condition that you're going to die from, like that. I would understand needing certain treatments and certain labels, but, like, here it's just our neurology. It's just a different, it's just a difference. It's just a difference. So I
would like it. I even get frustrated and would like it if as a community we even moved away from talking about self-diagnosis, because it's not, the diagnosis is literally just a checklist of observable behaviors.
Right.
That's why I'd like to say we just talk about the person it has discovered they're autistic. And I've we've said it a couple of times, but the diagnosis gives you more questions. It really doesn't give you answers. I still need to know what the frog book was for.
You don't discover actually what is the cause or the reason for those behaviors until you talk to the autistic community and you learn from the autistic community about sensory experience, how fundamentally different our sensory experience is from non-autistic people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I've been consulting with a family, a wholly neurodivergent family, and we're putting together using the draft of basically a profile building tool that Annette and I are trying to sort of finalize. It's been so long, though, because it's basically all the things that we have learned about ourselves or other autistic people we've worked with, supported, friends with, whatever it might be,
Wow.
that you might want or need to know to work out who you are and your needs. So coming back to that idea of, we don't demask, we don't support people to demask,
Right.
we support them to build their knowledge of their profile. And this family have done so much to try and work out and support them and their young people, that they've paid lots of money to different so-called professionals, in quotation marks. And then we've been working through the profile tool, and they were like, this is more than I will get from a so-called, you know, professional and things. And it's like, all we're doing is taking all the things that we've learned, the knowledge and stuff. It's not like we're making this out of thin air, and collating it in one place just to make it a little bit easier for people, so that you're not having to like otherwise the information is a little bit disparate.
Right.
Makes it a lot harder. But that's
amazing.
how we are who we are, by building that knowledge. We recognise, didn't we, Annette? We might want, and I know David Gray Hammond wants to as well, we want to maybe update or rework slightly the unofficial checklist that we use, that's based on Samantha Craft's original checklist. Because as we were going through it, we were going, well, the thing that because so the idea is you go, it's like first person, we've written it in first person, so it'll be like I experience XYZ. And we're reading through it now with the knowledge that we've had over the last few years, going, well, they're describing aphantasia there, they're describing alexithymia there, they're describing XYZ there. So
that's in the wrong category. Why is that there?
Yeah. That comes under Rachel Cullen's communication hypothesis, which, you know, all these things that gives us these answers.
That's so incredible. Because I have people who come to me and they're like, hey, I keep seeing this stuff and I need to know if this expression is autistic, or like share your journey so I can identify with you, kind of thing. And I've been meaning to do like collect my own experience in some kind of like checklist, but I just haven't gotten around to it. So hearing that other people are doing that, it's like, let me know. I want to see that, if you're okay with it, because like that's needed in the community.
Well, I
mean,
Samantha Craft's unofficial checklist is quite old. I don't say that in a derogatory way. I just mean, you know, it's not ours. So I just took what Samantha had created and
it was originally just for women, but we realized very quickly that, you know,
it's not a gendered
thing at all. Yeah.
I wish we
honestly, the checklist itself.
I wish we could move away from, like, people try to not gender it, but when they say female expressions, it's like that's still gendering, because in our society we conflate female with woman, and like I'm not a woman and I know male-bodied people who have the female expressions of autism. So like maybe let's just say there's diverse expressions and like go from there, you know. That's real. But it's super exciting to hear that there's more collections happening in modern day time that aren't gendered and are just, you know, helping people figure out who they are. I love the idea of building the knowledge of I forgot how you phrased it. It was like building the knowledge of a personality or personhood or something.
Oh, just like, I guess our profile of needs, or our profile of
profile.
I don't know what I
said. Profile of experience.
I have no idea what I said.
Yeah, what did we say? We said autistic personal profile. I can't remember.
Yeah. But like helping people understand who they are with that lens and not trying to like force unmasking, because I know for myself, part of my Great Depression when I was 26, I mean, the pandemic did a lot to everybody, but specifically understanding that I like that observational gap that happened when I was like, oh my God, I've been living a lie my entire life kind of feeling, and like wanting to unmask, but not knowing who was even under those masks to begin with, and how terrifying that is to like look into yourself and not know. Like I really
And so many
appreciate.
people express that fear that there
Yeah,
isn't anyone, that there's no one underneath. And
which isn't
Kieran
true.
does, yeah, exactly, because
Yeah,
Kieran
it's not
does
true at
talk
all.
about, you know, a lot of that mask is still you.
Right.
And I don't know, yeah, but yeah, exactly that. If you don't know who you are and your needs and how your brain works and things like that, then there is a great, and I had that fear. Who is, am I even a real person? Is there, am I just like a shell? I don't mean that in the sense of like, I don't mean in the sense of am I not tangible, but I just meant, am I just a
No, I know.
shell?
Yeah.
Is there like nothing, is there nothing there?
Same. I did
You
that.
know, when you get described as being a chameleon, and how do you like your eggs? Because I like my eggs all sorts of ways, and things like this. And that is a very real fear that, well, who am I then? I end up
Yeah.
looking and dressing like whoever I'm dating, and so I don't know, and that's really scary, really scary.
Very scary, especially
But yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, like, looping back to like some of the beginning topics, like understanding that, like, oh God, the way you put it, Annette, with living for other people, living to please other people, always wanting to like do the right thing and be the right thing so that others would accept you. Like I know you didn't say it like that, but that's my experience too. And you lose yourself when you are constantly changing who you are because of your surroundings, because of your environment. So allowing myself to find the right people, to have that observational gap where I wasn't a perfect daughter anymore. I no longer was beholden to Christian values of purity culture and those toxic relationships that I got into because I thought I had to. Like I thought I had to. Oh my God. My dream growing up was to marry the perfect man and have the perfect house with the white picket fence and like 2 kids and maybe a job. But like I was very focused and like blinders were up. That's what I needed in life because that's what I was told. And now that I look back, it's like, like I shudder thinking at the thought of marrying someone. I mean, marrying is one thing, but like marrying a man, a cis-het man, and having his children and like living life that way and repeating the same old cycle that we've been fed over and over again. And I'm not saying that it's wrong for people, because if that's what you want, go live your life, get that. But I was basically force fed that and brainwashed into thinking that I needed that. And coming out of it, it's like, okay, brain, go back. I hate when this happens. God damn.
What were you saying?
You're saying
force fed the fairy tale dream of,
right,
you know,
but it
and
related.
I didn't know if you were going to go with, well, what do I actually? I didn't know if you were going to go down the route of, well, what do I actually want then?
Right. Who am I? What, like when I finally found an environment that wasn't forcing so many things on me, it gave me a chance to like breathe and look at and take stock of what the F is like around me and what I'm buying into and where I'm putting my power when I should be investing in myself and being a little selfish and understanding that that life isn't for me and that life isn't for me, and like learn and build knowledge of who I actually am, little chunks at a time. And I really think figuring out my queerness first allowed me to advocate for my health. I finally got diagnosed after 20 plus years of unexplained symptoms, so much freaking pain, and a lot of gaslighting medically from my doctors and even from my family and friends. Like they did not believe that I was experiencing pain the way that I was. And then finally advocating for myself to realize who I am neurologically speaking, like why I am so different and how to find the people who are also so different and, you know, build up from there. Like I see how each layer, right, of grief or relationship and religion and like all these things just mixing around, painting me as one thing, and then being able to come out on the other side, and like choosing for myself, like, actually, no, this really is a part of me. This is who I am. And like taking those baby steps with the help of community, like you're talking about here. Sorry, that was a very long-winded way to get there, but
it was beautiful.
And because Annette, you know, Annette talks about, so we do a talk on autistic experience, gender and sexuality, and like the diversity that we see within the community. So Annette talks about that, also those intersections of, if you're busy working out your gender or busy working out your sexuality, then you might miss that you're autistic, for instance, or vice versa. We also see it that a number of people are so busy working out who they are as an autistic person, and then when they're doing that, but also but they might miss. But also, Annette, you talk about, don't you? So do you want to talk to that about once you start to demask in your controlled way, in not the sense of being vulnerable, you also realized you were masking gender and
the environment, and then oh God, that's my experience. I'd love to hear what you have to say about it.
Well, I mean, Chloe kind of explained it, but yeah, for me, it wasn't till years later when I started really to uncover all those layers and look at who I was as an autistic person, and be accepted by other autistic people for who I am, and be much kinder to myself. And there's a saying, someone wrote, Audre Lorde wrote about radical self-care, that you know, and that as autistic people, I think that's incredibly important to like have radical self-care, to take care of yourself and see that as a radical act. You know, for all the ableism, all the internalized kind of experiences that we've had, and to realize it's going to take time for us to kind of figure out who we are. And I think autistic people, it takes even longer to figure out gender, to figure out sexuality. It might be, you know, for me, alexithymia, but also my interception isn't that great. So not even understanding my physical like attraction to someone sometimes isn't there. So that all those things are so intertwined. And if you're shielding all those things, so you don't even know those things actually exist, you just think, well, I am this person that everybody tells me I am. There's so much that you have to uncover and discover about yourself before you can go, oh, actually, I'm non-binary. Oh, wow. I didn't, you know.
Wait a second.
That's who I am. Like, I know that. I knew that when I was 4, you know, but there was no words to describe it. And I think, you know, what you were saying earlier, vocabulary is, you know, and creating words to describe your experience is so incredibly important, because without that, it's very difficult to describe your experience. You don't have a word for it. And that, you know, that other people can describe. And I think you identify as autigender as well. I think you were saying, and I definitely identify as that, and that being autistic has affected the way my sexuality has affected my gender as well. And it can't be unentwined. You know, it's impossible. It's all mixed in there. And to a certain extent, my personality as well. I think I'm a very open person. I like to try all sorts of different things, and I feel like that is part of my autisticness as well. And everyone is different in that way, you know, obviously.
You're like, try all the things, and I'm like, no things.
Yeah.
I want to do no things. Thank you very much. I've literally just ordered myself like a giant hoodie to have like a summer version of my hoodie, which is too warm, obviously, once it starts to get really hot. So it's like a giant hoodie, but it's going to say no things, only stuff. I don't like doing things. I like stuff. And yeah, so no things. And Katie is also saying about autigender. So like in autigender. And we've talked about this before. So that I'm an autistic woman, but I'm not a woman. So I don't know whether, because I think more in terms of like neuroqueering. So I think with the autigender thing, that makes sense. But I, at this point in time, don't feel like I identify very strongly with that sort of term or concept. but definitely this
yeah.
idea that I'm an autistic woman who queers my gender because of my autistic sensory sensitivities and so on and so forth. But I'm definitely not like a woman in that neurotypical expected
binary sense of
way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I think, well, go ahead.
Oh no, you're good.
Oh, the cuteness is too real.
Okay, well, I honestly don't even remember what I was going to comment now. So, like, please.
Well, I was just going to say, Autigender is in relation to being, well, non-binary to a certain extent, or what beyond non-binary, someone who doesn't even like the word or to identify with binaries. So, because you're more than likely cis, you wouldn't identify with that kind of terminology as much as you would neuroqueer, because that's more about kind of anyone can neuroqueer, just like to a certain extent. You can queer things.
Yeah. Exactly. I actually, okay, so now I kind of remember where I was going. So Autigender brought me so much clarity and validation, whichever. Because originally, like, non-binary, I described in one of my blog posts as a shoe that fits, but it's just slightly too tight. So when you wear it all day and you take them off at night, you're kind of hurting, you know, like you got the sore feet from it. And I use it because that's those are the words that we have for the paradigms that we exist in. And for me, Autigender allows me the freedom to just not exist on the spectrum at all, to not have any participation in it, because my autism breaks down literally all structures. I don't care about any structures. I hate money specifically. That is my like favorite construct to hate. Like I could go off on it, but like literally any kind of construct that makes a hierarchy of how of white supremacy obviously is a huge one, right? Like making one type of person more powerful because of the color of their skin over other types of people. It blows my mind that anyone can believe that. Like it doesn't compute in my head. So when I use Autigender, it allows me the freedom to not participate in gender at all. I just get to be human, and like barely human at that, because I believe my body is an avatar. Like I don't, I'm connected to it. My spirit or energy, whatever you want to call it, is in here, and clearly I'm communicating to you, and I'm experiencing the world in this 3D, 4D-ish realm. But like Autigender is just it has brought me so much freedom, is what I'm trying to get at. It's like I don't have to participate in gender if I don't want to, because I use Autigender. And then non-binary and all the other words are tools for me to connect to other people who relate to those words. Because barely human.
I like that.
What's important there as well is that some people, particularly, you know, cis het neurotypical people, will say, or people who can perform neurotypicality, will say those things of like, why would you want to put yourself into boxes, and why would you, because by us using our terminology and our identities and things. But like you just sort of said, and Annette's talked about this and performed about this, which is that actually those identities are freeing. It's because we are the ones that get to choose and identify with them, as opposed to people placing negative labels on us, which is, people really struggle with that. They don't understand. It's a big difference to be labeled by somebody compared to this coat fits, or this hat fits, or this whatever it might be as an identity, and claiming it. That's a big difference.
I love that. And I forget the blog post. I'll have to post it later, maybe in the comments, but there's someone who explores gender expression versus gender identity, and they use the analogy or metaphor of constellations. So like you can have both your identity and expression as constellations of just things you like. And I really like that, because I, as a human, or barely human, as I said, like, I love choosing and picking the things that I like and making that who I am, instead of being told, like, this is my box, right? And I love that you brought that up, Chloe, because it's often that cis people are like more like, they don't see it because there's not introspection there for them, but like, they are so beholden to gender, like they hyper participate in gender compared to non cis people, like non-gender, like gender non-conforming, or even trans, even binary trans, right? Like, because we're choosing to align to who we are. Like, yes, cis people are aligned to who they are, and that's beautiful, and we should celebrate that too. But when they are so bent out of shape over other people choosing their gender or choosing not to participate in gender, it's like they're participating more than we are and holding on to the boxes on the binary. Like, it cracks me up to think.
I don't understand why some people just they look at someone and they have to give them a male or female. They have to, no matter. And it's like, who cares? That's just a person. It's a human being. It doesn't matter. Why why do you have to put a word to that person that describes their gender when you don't even know them or will never speak to them again? I don't understand it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
I'm
We've gone on such a random tangent, and I'm just thinking,
I know.
No,
I know, but I'm so I totally get what you're talking about. Systems. I don't get them. I don't get time. I don't get money. I have not lived my life about all the things that supposedly you're supposed to live your life on, because I just don't get any of it.
Well, I always very much confused and sometimes angered, particularly men, when I would say that I don't want and have never wanted children. It really angers some people. And I actually worked with a very frustrating male pharmacist for a number of years, and he would bring it up all the time. Have you changed your mind yet? Are you going to have? And I was like, no, I've explained multiple times. I do not want and have never felt that I wanted children. And that's okay. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with not wanting to get married. I'm okay, so it's interesting, because I think in a lot of ways I did mask and shield in a number of ways, but in a lot of ways I also refused to even pretend that at some point I was going to get married and have children, because that would be lying, and that's not what I would ever end up doing. So I'm just looking in the comments as well. So we've got I think there's some lovely funny things, and then if you've got any key things that you were really hoping that you were going to mention or bring up or discuss, or do you feel that we've maybe hopefully
actually, so Madame Crustacean is Katie's drag name. I don't know what the context is because I can't see the comments, but
they're basically talking about how they're like not human. So they went on. Somebody was talking about being an alien. Somebody was talking about being a lobster. Somebody was identifying with lobsters.
I started doing drag in 2009 as Transgressa. Transgressa was my name. I didn't know I was non-binary at the time, or autistic. But that was what,
That's amazing. I was literally just about to bring up drag, because I just started in October of last year doing like drag king, drag thing, creature things. Actually, I have a show coming up where I'm bringing out my creature for the first time, and I'm very nervous, but I'm very excited. But I wanted to bring it up because not only did I see the Madame Crustacean thing, but I wanted to express euphoria, or like talk about euphoria for 2 seconds, because we've talked a lot about grief and heavy things, and I love how drag specifically, at least in the city that I'm in, and even back in Ann Arbor when I was living there, that's where I started, and then I've traveled like a little bit into Ohio, so like literally the drag community has allowed me not only to be seen fully for who I am and gender and like in all of the things, but the community itself is very diverse neurologically. And I have a lot of new friends who are also neurodivergent, and we just get to like geek out with each other about who we are and our expression and how fun drag is. And like, I didn't know I was missing that. I didn't know until I got on stage and was adopted by the community, and now we're all family. And that's just like another space where it is such a beautiful thing to be celebrated for who we are. And I didn't know neurodivergence could play a role in that. And yet here I am connecting with people who are autistic with ADHD and are loving life and just experiencing euphoria together. Like I'm very grateful for that space as well. So I just wanted to like say that's a good part of all of the self-discovery, you know.
Definitely.
I mean, all of it's good because it's but anyway.
Well, how revolutionary to actually enjoy being who we are, you know, against the narrative that we're supposed to be miserable, autistic, isolated islands, and so on. Annette, can I share that one slide from our training that's actually got some of those pictures?
Oh yeah, so I did a piece of work called Transgressions, where I did Transgressa, which was kind of a non-binary drag, hyper feminine, I don't know, drag queen, queen, and then I did a drag king character, and then I did a bearded burlesque ballerina as well. So I had kind of 3 characters, which totally just kind of describes me in and of itself. But I did workshops as well, where I just encourage people to do drag however they wanted to. So, you know, just because you're a man doesn't mean that you can't be a drag king, and just because you're a woman doesn't mean you can't be a drag queen, and therefore, or anything in between.
It's a performance. Like you're performing gender. That's the fun part. Like it doesn't matter what identity you have. Like it can be for anybody. And I'm so grateful to see that shift as well in the drag community, because it didn't used to be like that. You had to be a queen, you had to be a king, and it had to be like you're switching for the other team. You know, like now it's just be who you are and experiment and have fun. And like how cool. I'm very excited to bring out my creature, and I'm very excited to perform feminine stuff too. Like I want to be hyper feminine and embrace that, because I wasn't afforded that growing up. Like it felt like a coffin instead of a costume. You know what I mean? Now it gets to be a costume and I get to have fun. So God, I'm so grateful that you shared that. Thank you. Like that's awesome.
Can I share this? Can I share the pictures in it? Is that
please, I'd love to see. Will it show? Okay, good. Oh my God.
I mean, this is, so I've got Transgressa in the pink. And then
gorgeous.
Daddy Long Legs is based on Fred Astaire. I tap danced in that piece.
Yes.
And then the bearded burlesque ballerina was based on Marlene Dandy. Her name was Marlene Dandy, but it was Marlena Dietrich, 1940s movie star. So yeah, those are my characters.
You look incredible. I'm in love. Do you still do stuff?
I haven't in a while, but now I've been doing a ridiculous PhD for the past 5 years, which has brought me here and to all the things that we are doing. But I would like to get back to it again, because it is me, and I understand myself so much better now. Looking back on it, it's like, oh my God, for me, I express myself the best creatively, not through words, not through anything else.
Same.
And I look at those images, 2009, that was a long time ago. I knew who I was, and I expressed it creatively, but I didn't know how to do that in my real life.
Yep. Oh God, that is oh my God, Annette, that is so freaking beautiful. Wow.
Oh, thank you.
To be showing the world who you are and just taking your time. Like that's what I want to say is like, it's not wasted time. None of it is wasted time. When you are in pursuit of finding who you are, every step of the way is not wasted, because you're getting a step closer. And for you to like have the outlet to experiment and show who you were but are, and then just catch up in other ways to present day, and like you say, your PhD has brought you here, like that. I just got chills. It's so good. It's so beautiful. Oh my God.
Yeah, and I think we're constantly learning, we're constantly changing, and we have to accept that. And it's amazing and it's beautiful, and there's euphoria in that as well.
Yes.
And there's euphoria in being autistic. And I think that's great that you brought that up, because I always talk about that in terms of all forms of our sensory experience of the world. There's so much fascination and beauty in the world that autistic people experience that other people don't, or neurodivergent people in general experience that non-neurodivergent people don't, or neurotypical people don't. And I think that is forgotten a lot of the times.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just like this comment. Did anyone else dress as a normal person in quotation marks on Halloween as a dark joke? And actually, okay, Jaesic is saying that they did, but I'm also thinking Annette's PhD did loads of workshops with young, well, actually we were all different ages, but with autistic university students. And you did actually ask us to perform neurotypicality, and it was hilarious because one of the autistic people was so funny. They were like kind of like frog marching across the because we were in like a drama space, marching across the drama space, pretending they're on the phone going weather, I am normal or something like this. And it was just so funny because actually we don't know how to do it very well.
No.
Anyway.
No, that's so funny.
But we don't have.
Good.
Yeah, we can't understand the experience to a certain extent. We see it. I guess we see behavior the same way neurotypical people see our behavior. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, yes, there's still the double empathy problem, because Rachel kept telling me off because I kept saying that, you know, we feel like we're being lied to by non-autistic people when they don't give all the information, and that there's that hidden meaning. And Rachel is autistic, and they're in linguistics, like they've got 2 linguistics degree, and their communication hypothesis is just so exciting about autistic communication. But they were saying that's me putting an autistic judgment, because the non-autistic person doesn't think they're lying. They aren't consciously motivated to hide information when there's that hidden meaning. But to us, that's how it feels. That's how we experience it, and things like this. So yeah, it's still that double empathy issue of going the other direction.
For it too. Yeah, like my partner right now is going through a situation with his job because neurotypical corporate world doesn't understand that being friendly isn't flirting. Like literally, we're like, he might lose his job because of this miscommunication, misinterpretation, and it's gender discrimination too, because he's non-binary and people perceive him as a cishet white male who's predatory. Like it's just gross. All of it's gross, and we're like dealing with that in a very real way where neurotypical people can't have the empathy that, like you said, the double empathy problem. Like they're extending themselves.
They're expecting to see or understand that there's hidden meaning where there is none.
When
because that's what they're used to, whereas we're so used to this being everything on the table
and direct. Yes. Oh my God. Face value.
And, the number of times that I've described how I met Annette, and it's just how sometimes, obviously not all for autistic people because we're all so different, but there's the if you did like someone, it would be, I like you, can we date, for instance?
Right.
Whereas with Annette and me, it was I can't make friends, and Annette was like, literally hand in the air, I'll be your friend.
Yep.
You know, it's that direct. There's none of that trying to work out, does that person like me? Have I annoyed them? What does this mean? What does that text mean? And we actually had that. Annette, do you remember we had one of our autistic students had a message from who they thought was a friend.
Yeah.
And they were trying to decipher it. And they were like, I'm not sure what they're actually saying. And what should I reply? Do they like me? Or like, as in like me romantically? And what was really funny, they was asking an autistic social, and myself and like 5 other autistic people are all trying to decipher this one text message.
Yeah.
It's like, we are probably the wrong people to ask.
Yeah, 5 autistics trying to decipher a neurotypical text. It doesn't work.
We just have no idea. We have no idea about what they were trying to say. Whereas we would just be like, just ask. Like, but they couldn't just ask because that person might not have meant that. They might take it the wrong way. Whereas we would literally just be like, are you trying to hit on me? Actually, no, I'm not. Right. Cool. Right. Let's move on.
Let's move on. Let's be friends. Like I do that all the time now. That's part of my unmasking is just allowing myself direct communication, like giving myself that permission. Because if someone's saying something and I'm sensing that weird vibe of like, are there things in between the lines? Like, do I need to decipher this like a code? I just allow myself to ask now every single time. Like, I don't hold back, because I that's so much wasted energy and turmoil inwardly that I don't have time to deal with. Like, if you want to flirt with me, cool. If you don't want to flirt with me, cool. I just need to know. I just need to know so we can move on with our lives and be in relationship. Like, it's not weird, I promise. Yeah. Anyway, I really, so much stuff.
Okay.
I could go on.
So I know, and this is the thing. So there may be potential for other. I feel like there's other topics that we can cover at another point. So you are always, you know, other thoughts or ideas. I'm feeling like maybe an Annette and Jaesic like creative mashup, something or other.
Oh yeah,
which would be quite interesting.
Hosting one of your jammy things. I think that would be really cool.
Jammy things.
Yeah, jammy things.
I'm just imagining like jam, and I like the fact you genuinely. I mean, we don't call. We probably do get that GIF stuff in the UK, but it's not a big thing. But I think I've got an idea what you mean. Butter. But I like that you've actually like it's jam and GIF.
Yeah.
So what is it?
Peanut butter. It's just peanut butter. Yeah.
So it's like a brand or something. Okay.
Yeah, it's a brand. Yeah. So Americans just call everything the brand.
Yeah, exactly. Like Kleenex. It's not actually. Yeah.
Aucademy drag show.
That would be amazing.
I mean, okay, right. Excited, very excited. Right. There are plans to do an Aucademy. What was I going to call it? What were we going to call it? Hold on. I will find out what we were going to call it. Too much excitement in one space. I can't remember what I'm calling it.
Was this the potato thing or something else?
Is this an open
No.
Oh, no, okay.
No, the queer autistic conference, basically. So
like a jamboree.
The idea,
a neuro queer thing.
Ooh.
The idea was to do an autistic and queer conference, because we were recognizing that, you know, some of our autistic people that we know are trying to work out that stuff, and actually some of them just need the basics of what even is non-binary, what even is, you know, that kind of stuff, because they really struggle to process, you know, what these things are. And particularly a young person asked us recently, you know, how do you work out if you're a woman? And we were saying, well, it's just if that's who you are, you feel it, you know. And they were like, well, I don't know how I feel in anything, so how can I work out that? So it was that kind of idea. So we had a number of things, like literally having somebody just go through the basics of some of the more I don't want to say common, but the terminology, the identities that you potentially could work out fit you, and all this kind of thing. Other stuff like, you know, potentially seeing if Erin Eakins wants to do some more work with us on autistic friendly queer spaces and safety, talking about, you know, asexuality spectrum and things like that for, you know, autistic people. So a number of things. So so I just saw the comment section, just going to ignore it for a second. So, but yeah, a drag, like it could end on a bang of like a drag show.
Big bang.
Amazing.
Drag
show. Neuro-less.
That sounds great.
Once again, time has gotten away from
I don't want to. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Jess.
That happens.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, shameless plug, right? Shameless plug. Because I do offer, so I'm a life coach, first of all, but I'm also a peer support specialist. So if people go to my website and find the tabs for coaching, there's also the peer support sessions. And I do stuff like that. I basically hold a container, a safe container for people to come and talk with me about their experience. And I, you know, give guided questions, or I share my experience if they ask for it. And we just do like a mini coaching session of like, who am I and what do I want out of life kind of thing. And it's slowly growing, but like I just wanted to offer that because that's my jam as well. Like I just want to help people be who they are. Like like forget the circumstances.
Are you also in our? It's a very small and quite quiet group, but you're in our Aucademy LGBTQIA group. because you might,
I
yeah,
don't know if I
there's
am.
People might
potentially,
find you there.
yeah, there's potentially going to
Oh,
be
okay.
people in there that would actually benefit from that kind of service, because, you know, I cover a certain number of topics in consultations, but it's, yes, they're finding people who actually cover the right sorts of topics that people really need is very, very helpful. So just quickly grabbing a couple of comments. Oolong, who I think is Fergus, I think that's Fergus, has asked, you all know about Aut-Gen Sex, right? Which is a queer autistic conference. I think I have heard of it. So it's not to replace or anything like that, Fergus. It was just to do like an Aucademy based one, particularly because of some of the comments we were seeing. People trying to explore their gender and their sexuality within the frame of being autistic, but in our closed group. So we wanted to offer them something. So it's not like it's going to be this massive thing, but we will, I mean, we will potentially open it up to the public as well. But it's more, it was to try and support some of the people that we already have, as it were. So yeah, certainly not to replace anything.
That's Marianthe, isn't it? It's in Birmingham. It's got to be Marianthe. Oh, anyway.
Oh, probably, yeah, because Marianthe mentioned, didn't they, that they had one of the first conferences on that.
Honestly, the more the merrier, because not everyone's going to access that one specific event. So like, I love that y'all are thinking about making this happen, because like that, God, that is such important work. Like people need those things to just like be comfortable exploring. Like I hate how we have to be so rigid in this black and white thinking. Everything is gray. You get to experiment. You get to try on labels and figure out what resonates and what doesn't. And there's no shame in picking something up and then putting it back down. It's okay. Like, so just to have spaces like this, I thank you for bringing that to the world. Like that's vital. That's
well,
awesome.
just thinking that there's definitely potential if you're interested to deliver something for it.
Sure.
That's what I was thinking as well. That's why I was getting excited. And then the idea of actually
autistic thing where if I'm not directly invited explicitly with the words like I want you, then I'm just like, cool, that sounds great. Have fun. Like
no. We are interested because it sounds like you'd be able to contribute something for whatever it is we end up doing. And then I've just flagged Sai being hilarious, which is Aucademy. So like,
oh my God,
Aucademy. Katie, mix it with some talent show volunteer presentations. So not just making it just like a conference where we're giving and delivering to people, but absolutely encouraging contributions from people if they feel comfortable.
Conference and jam, maybe.
That exactly. Oh God, this is so. I'm getting like a full body sensory experience talking about this. So,
it's very exciting.
Katie just brought up queer cult community. That's another space I have online. It's a private group. You can search for it and just answer the questions, and as long as they align with the right answers, then you're welcome. It's a space where we explore our marginalized identities, whether it's in commiseration or celebration, outside of the structures that be. And we can talk about systemic things as well, but it's really just a safer container, online, monitored. You can ask anonymous questions if you like, to get feedback, share experiences with people, and just feel a sense of community. That's another like general supportive space, I guess.
And then I've just seen that we've got some people trying to get into the Aucademy LGBTQIA group already. So we've mentioned it and now they're like, can I come in? Yes, you can. We'll be there as soon as we can.
Yay.
Fantastic. And Katie's like digs out high school poetry because like we were saying, like if you want to contribute something.
Oh yeah.
Okay. We went for nearly 2 hours, Annette.
I know.
Because
we were supposed to do an hour.
We were all supposed to do an hour?
Well, no, we keep trying to do an hour because people say they're too long, but it doesn't matter.
It's
just fast forward us.
Yeah,
it's not possible. But actually, I mean, you say that. So this is the thing. We try to deliver things in different ways. So I've been doing bite size of like 20-minute topics of like what even is autism. So the third one will be out next week.
Nice.
But then we've got these longer discussions, and then some people make blogs. So like Katie and David quite regularly do blogs on things. So actually we do all
Yeah.
size things.
It's
So
yeah.
the 2-hour
good.
ramblings
Different flavors.
of,
Yeah.
you know,
I like
we're
it.
just far too it's too interesting. It's
It
far too
is so
interesting.
much stuff, so exciting.
Very,
Very
very
good.
exciting. Thank you, everybody. Annette has one final question for us.
Oh yes. So, what is your favorite stim?
So when I'm on meeting, I have this stress ball. It's sand, very fine sand, and two balloons stapled together, and it's like the perfect amount of squish and like texture and everything. I have a bunch of little stim toys, but if it's like my favorite that I'm not on meeting with, movement. I'm a dancer, so I love just twirling and moving my body and just like feeling at home, stimming it out. Like I love to move around, so that would be my favorite for sure.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
She probably you would probably like the what, Chloe, your cucumber. Isn't that sand as well?
Oh, my cucumber. Where is my cucumber?
You have a cucumber, like
it's sand and squish. Yeah, quite good.
I think it's somewhere safe because I get very attached. Like I anthropomorphize objects.
Me too.
I'd get really sad because I would watch some of the autistic people in our groups like stretching it beyond like, and I'd be there just like, oh, that poor cucumber,
pulling the eyeballs off. Yeah.
No! Yeah. So I now separate that particular cucumber. So Sai's actually asking the final question. Ooh. Baby Yoda or Grogu?
I respect Grogu because at a certain point he does say his name. So like honoring any trans person or any person who wants a different name, right? Like I choose Grogu, but I do slip up sometimes and refer to him as Baby Yoda because it's just so cute.
It is so cute.
So cute.
I just don't feel like they thought long and hard about his name. Oh, okay. And the final.
Sorry.
Speak.
He makes noises.
Awesome.
So cute. Anyway. I'm going to have to get Sai one. The final question.
Final.
Mayonnaise or salad cream?
Oh, dear God.
No Miracle Whip allowed.
No Miracle Whip. I am not allowed to be in the middle. No.
It's one or
Why are
the
we
other.
asking black and white questions? We know everything is gray.
Yes.
Well, it's an ongoing thing on Aucademy. It started so long ago now. It's like one of those things where I made the mistake of letting on that I put salad cream in my if I have a chicken and mushroom pot noodle, and it really upset Sai. And Sai hates salad cream. But you've probably never had salad cream.
It's not an American thing. No,
it's definitely
kind of like it's a little bit like Miracle Whip, but it doesn't have any. No, but it's made of egg though, so that's different. I don't even know what the difference is between.
It's more vinegary. It's vinegary.
Okay.
So Sai says go forth and queer, also mayo, because salad cream to him is wrong, whereas salad cream to me is just heaven. So, but it's fine. The fewer people who like salad cream, the more for me during the apocalypse when we build Autopia.
Yes.
So it's fine.
There you go.
But I like Nick Walker's just hummus. They just said hummus. That's what they like.
Hummus is good. I like hummus.
So thank you, lovely people. Lovely. People are saying that the 2-hour ramblings are great. Somebody else said something. Garth said about, which is an amazing name, Garth. It's nice to just listen in while doing other things, so the length is fine. So thank you very much for validating our very long rambly sessions.
Yes.
So lovely people. Next week it will be Annette and I again, because we need to discuss in more detail the 6 common reactions of autistic discovery, and particularly because I really want to put to bed that we're not talking about grief in the way that people I didn't talk about grief at all actually with the 6 stages of autistic discovery, but just wanting people to understand whatever your response and whatever responses in the future you have as an autistic person, when you realize you're autistic, they are valid, and more than likely other autistic people have experienced it, and giving you some hope that if you're in a negative state of feeling about your
It's not
autistic
gonna
self,
be like that forever.
it doesn't have to. No, it doesn't have to be that way forever. So thank you, lovely people. And we will see you next week. And now I need to find the outro music. So feel free to just wave really awkwardly.
Thank you,
until I
Jaesic, for
find
coming
it.
and talking to us.
Thank you so
amazing.
much for having me. This was wonderful. I'm
And
excited
feel free to stay on to the studio, Jaesic, as well.
Yes.
Awkward
yes.
waving.
Yep.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.